Hello there, I'm Tomlin's Nyback. This is 365 Days Towards Racial Change. Welcome to episode 330. I titled this one Economic Church, and we'll see if I can explain my mind. I hope it's not too abstract. I'll start out with a little story, and then we'll get more into it. But I want you to remember this story. I finally had, we'll say, enough faith to buy a car on payments, and I wasn't even working a job that um, I couldn't really afford it. I knew it would be tight to do it, but I had just this belief I could make it. The job seemed secure. My living was secure. I was showing up to work. Yeah, I was in the zone. So I took the plunge, signed the papers, off on the road. Um, in the course of time, I lost the job. I started driving for Uber. The car was just 1 year away, so I just got in under the radar. Um, Replaced all four tires, had all kinds of work done, replaced the computer in the car and all that. And I still got the receipts and whatnot. That's almost like $10,000 worth of work. I don't know, between insurance payments, all the car was just a mess. But I hung in there with it. I believe took out a loan. Yeah, I was looking good and everything. But I was still kind of on a shoestring, and things were still tight. Um, just as long as I could keep running that Uber and stuff, I could keep it going. But I was recovering and from all these payments, repairs, and all that. And right at the holidays, this the car dealership, I signed up for automatic payments, and the dealership took their money, which I believe they took it out of turn. You know, um, they were a few days early in their payment, and like I said, I was on a shoestring, and that backed up. That made this cascade event through my finances that it just took me a whole year to recover. 2017 was a financial disaster. That was my coronavirus year. You know, what's going on globally? I felt that in 2017. They just messed up everything. Car got repossessed, on and on, blase, blase. But I just shared that because after this car dealership had ran me over and had their way with me, like they were still coming after me for payments. They were still coming after me. They want solutions to go to work and make this thing continue to run and whatnot. And I said, you know, in Christian circles, you hear sometimes they'll say the devil is a liar. Well, that's how I felt against them. It was at that point, I realized, America is feverish with this money thing. People don't exist, and this is any color, because America's color is green, the mighty dollar, um, and people personally don't exist in the system, right? None of us. You'll hear me talk about all people and stuff like that, but this story is for everyone because nobody exists. When I told this story to white folks, they're like, Yeah, man, I've been through that too. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's like, people, you've crippled me. You've exploded my life. I don't have means anymore because you jumped the line. You got in front and took yours, and I couldn't get the bank to help me, and people, nothing. It was just all money, and I had not. I didn't know that about America until this incredible financial thing happened to me. Anyway, long story short, keep that in mind. Economics, America, how America works, the economics. Title of this episode is Economic Church. Keep that in mind. Now, just briefly on that, which I will get into it. Um, I've been thinking about white folks. I see them struggling with this coronavirus 2020. You know, minorities, black folks are suffering more often. And that's statistics. You can see that on the news every night. The big news cycle about black people being at a greater disadvantage during the coronavirus than other folks. We kind of trade places, us and Hispanics, you know, but white orientation, white belief at this time, um, white concerns, the power group, right? The country is still firmly in the grasp of the control of the power group. I don't see that changing anytime soon. But the virus is big enough where it has come upon. Um, it's big enough where that majority power group, they feel some of the problems economically stemming from that. Now more of them are experiencing what it's like to have this inexorable beast nipping at their heels. You know, this um, apathetic, impersonal creature that's just consumes. It just consumes. That's all it does. With no let up, no break. It needs a lot of attention. It has a lot of casualties. There are a lot of people um, that are expendable in this machine called American economics. And it just munches and consumes. And there's um, no end in sight. It sees only one direction, has no compassion. And so I wonder how white people get along. Now, for black folks, are we watching? Are we paying attention to some of the opportunities that may be before us? Right? We don't necessarily want to see any ill will perpetrated against another human being, um, but I think some of the people who lived in privilege, who understand, you know, frequent vacations, getting along, getting around, owning their business, having a say in their lives, now they've been cut down a little bit. I remember I was in Philadelphia during 9/11, and I went to a church, and the pastor of the church said, it's interesting to see white folks afraid of what we deal with every day in the inner city, and that was such a true statement. It was like he got a few amens, but like this was a black church, the black church was like, yeah, yeah, because because us black folks are just besieged and battled. We just live in it, and it's so constant and normal. So when the black pastor says, you know, that his white friends are commenting and they're afraid and have phobias are rising up in areas that black folks live with and deal with on a daily basis, right? Um, yeah, but we don't expect, black folks we don't expect a plane to drop in our neighborhood, but the threat of violence became very real and home, you know, homebound, homegrown for white folks during 9/11. And this virus is doing the same thing for us. Um, it's a way, it has leveled the field, and I hope black people are being recognizing and seeing opportunity, and don't just wait passively for the system to come back online because it's just going to try to reassert itself in the way it was. It's going to try real hard to be like that, where black people are scrambling on the bottom, or working so many jobs, not being home, nurturing family and stuff like that. Well, get a good taste of this downtime and cherish it, nourish it, and don't let. I'm hoping that the black folks don't let themselves fall into these, at the time of disadvantage, and then wonder, boy, well, I'm really getting stepped on here. I mean, this is not fair. Gosh darn it. We had the creature laying at its feet. It was crushed. It was, mortally wounded. We just had to do the coup de grace on it. We'll see. We'll see how this comes out. I'm inspired to do this work by a man named Dr. Claude Anderson. I've read 3 of his works. I encourage you to get these. First was a Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask, Black Labor, White Wealth, Search for Power and Economic Justice, and Dr. Anderson's National Plan to Empower Black America. Powernomics, you can find Dr. Anderson at powernomics.com, here at YouTube, all over the internet. Good guy to listen to. Behind me, you see the hashtag #US2 symbol. Find black women having their conversation and support there. Check out Black Enough, BLAGGENUF, kind of a black Facebook experience. Dr. Boyce Watkins at the Black Business School, theblackbusinessschool.com, for if you have an entrepreneurial mind. And if you have a business mind and you need tax help, reach out to a guy named Tyrone Gregory, tax guy, and you will get in touch with his resources, might find something useful for you there. We also have what I call story time. Harriet Beecher Stowe's phenomenal work, Uncle Tom's Cabin. Fictional account of slave life in America, but that's informed by factual events appropriate for our current economic crisis. It's a health crisis, but economic crisis. Check out G. Edward Griffin's book, The Creature from Jekyll Island. Get a understanding economically what's going on, and some clues and ideas you can get from this present economic situation. Economic Church. Now, today we're going to talk about the economy, right? And the economy, boy, I tell you, it's an American religion that we worship, we sacrifice to, it doesn't. It's just power, and it doesn't reciprocate. any of our dances, chants, and all this. Um, it just demands. Um, Sometimes it's rude and cruel. Sometimes it does bless people, but it's a religion. It's a church, nonetheless. Um, you know, the economy. Let me put it this way. Ancient Greece, ancient Rome, ancient civilizations had their gods and their um, the gods did this or that and had hierarchy and stuff like that. It's not much different uh, from today's science in the way we understand how the world interacts and how different systems um, support, negate, equalize, complement each other. It was the same way the gods worked in ancient times. This god kind of offset that god, and this goddess, could, it's like rock paper scissors, in a lot of ways. Now, there's gifts and talents, and weaknesses and deficiencies to each one, and um, the gods and science are not that much different, right? The more you know the more we understand and manipulate the world, the more we the more we find out we don't know, right? You get a telescope and you can see light years away, but you still don't know what's going on. We can see way down microscopically, but we keep uncovering stuff like an onion, and there's no end to it. Well, the economy is something that civilizations have developed. It's how we kind of get along. I, you know, I don't know how to kill and dress a cow, so I go to the supermarkets, but I've got to go do some labor to make the exchange, and someone has to grow the cow, butcher the cow, dress the cow, and stuff like that. So it is a big system, and there's a lot of cooperation inside there. It works very well. It's just uh, in America, the economy, which is called capitalism, takes and squeezes much more than it gives out. We spend so much more. Our return on investment is really skewed in a negative way if you're below a certain line economically, socioeconomically in America. And it's mostly true for black people. Um, we gave this beast, this entity called economics, this godlike status, right? When I was down and out and plumb busted open by the economics of the car dealership, all they knew, they didn't care about my skin color, my address, any that they had crippled me financially. They just knew they'd drive it more, get it now. You know, I was, I wasn't a partner with them in owning a car. I was just a drone. Like the car didn't even matter, really. It wasn't the car. It was my labor, my resources being sacrificed, being delivered up to the system. They didn't care if I had a car or not, right? And you know what? The proof is like I gave my license, right? I'm thinking they're running my license for verification and stuff. My license was suspended. I have no license, and I drove off the lot with their car. So They didn't care about cars, validation, everything. I was just a person who had willingly offered himself on the altar of economics. And I signed, it would have been more appropriate if I had signed in blood. I mean, that's the kind of deal I walked into, that had no idea what I was doing. You know, didn't know how impersonal this whole transaction was. I was a non-entity in the entirety of that transaction, right? And that's the way that's the way the ancient Greeks kind of saw their gods, right? The gods just, they were real, but they existed a long time ago, and these are just beliefs that men and women hold on to, cry out to in trouble, and thank and offer stuff up when in times of blessing, right? But it's never an interaction where the um, the principal God interacts in contemporary life, right? It's just this power, and it's got its priests and priestesses operating under the guise of being agents of the God, but they don't. Um, they're just as impersonal. They just know that I'm supposed to bring these offerings at specific times, and I'm going to be in big trouble. Who cares if they dipped into the pot? There's a story in the Bible about this priest called Eli. He's got some sons, and Eli's getting old, and he's letting his sons run the church, we'll say. And these were just corrupt men running the church, and they cause a lot of upheaval in the name of God, and it really put a bad, um, it put God in a bad light, and there were some consequences like that. But not so with America's economic church, America's economics. You know, it doesn't care what it looks like. It just knows it needs to be fed, that it needs servants. You know, so when houses and cars and some of those important long-term uh, financial elements rise up, economics loves that, because now there's a mandate. There is some choices you have to make. You can't get around and stuff, and they're going to demand uh, that you come do. Is worse than the mafia, right? If you take out a loan and you just got to pay. But I, even if you can't work, whatever. Remember the first Rocky movie? Sylvester Stallone is chasing the guy, and he's like, Stallone is like, the boss says, I got to break your thumb um, if you can't pay. And the dude's like, dude, if you break my thumb, I can't work. And Rocky's like, okay, yeah, okay. We're going to go with that. So that's what you got to, but that's the economics, though. Economics is much more cruel than that. It's a religion. Listen, religion is it's a unifying social force that it's going to um, extend its power. It's going to grow exponentially in all kinds of ways to make sure that its kind of unity is adhered to, worshipped, sustained. Right? That's what religion is going to do to you. Now, with that unifying element is going to come another aspect called colonialism. It's the object of a lot of studies in college, colonialism and stuff like that. And you can imagine what that means. You don't hear much about it now because the world, we kind of know our planet. Now we're not discovering these hidden tribes out in South America much anymore because we've really exploited the globe. So there's not much hidden from us, as say back in the 1400s. But in the 1400s, when sailing was being mastered, we were discovering these new places, and so these powerful places like Spain, England, Portugal, France, Germany would send out, you know, their agents and colonize. Well, colonize is such a safe, benign term. What it meant was they went, put down roots with force, and the indigenous people were um, coerced or whatever. You know, it wasn't some equitable um, relationship. You know, same here in America. Like, you love the Thanksgiving. Oh, it's the Pilgrims and the Native Americans they were so equitable. The first Thanksgiving and stuff like that. You know, the Europeans just ran the Native Americans over, ripped them off for land, right? You know, I've done it in my personal life, but I don't know if you want to be the nation that just gave away so much for shiny beads and trinkets and stuff. Well, that's the colonialism that happened. From the colonialism, we also know that this is where the word racism as well comes from, because once that free labor was found in Africa, free land in the Americas, the race began, right? And the people, um, the jockeys were European, right? And they ran the horses. They controlled all this economic discourse. So, you've got religion, you've got this unifying principle, and whether it's God or something like that, we got it in modern day. Not so much America. America, economics is the religion. So, other religion where there's a real God and stuff, America doesn't care about as long as you're paying the bills. But in the Middle East with Allah, or Israel with Jehovah, Yahweh, things like that. Those where you see the theistic, the monotheistic structures of government, places like that, where religion over rules in those spaces. But that's kind of the history of America's economics. Yeah, it's a combination of religion in those spaces, branching out, colonizing areas of the world, and um, engaging in the economics. And the economics, the machine is where the indigenous people or the imported people, black folks were imported, um, whoever they are at the bottom of the heap, and they are just labor in the system, drones and stuff like that. In my case, I was already slated to be a drone, to be used up in the system. I just had to, um, well, when I signed those papers, then I elevated my status, but then incurred all these extra costs. You know, it's a learning experience. I learned a lot from that experience. I know what to do and what not to do with my finances through that. Economic church. I don't know, I hope that made some sense, right? Because America, there's a racial scheme out there, but there's an even higher power than that. It's called economics. And economics is a little colorblind. There's some other agents underneath it that are trying to orchestrate and parse out power and control. Some of that is in a crippled status right now, and we got an opportunity to change a lot of that. Uh, Beware where and how you worship in America. Hopefully, we can do our best, all we can, to abstain from participating in the economic church. My name is Tomlin Nyback. That's day 330 out of the way. Come back and see us again. We'll see you next time at 365 Days Towards Racial Change. Bye bye.